All right, thank you, everybody, and welcome to the webinar, Locating Orphan and Abandoned Wells in Western Pennsylvania. My name is Patrice Tomchek, and I'm the Senior Field Director for Moms Clean Air Force, and I live in Butler County, about 35 minutes north of Pittsburgh. Today's webinar will be recorded, and we will send around a link afterwards so that you can view it. And we encourage questions either in the chat or you can ask them verbally at the end of the presentation by raising your hand. At that point, we will make you a panelist so you can ask your question. We will stop the recording during the question and answer session. Today, our speakers are Adam Peltz from EDF, Meg Coleman from EDF, and we will go ahead and begin. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Adam Peltz.
Great, thank you, Patrice. And could we go to the next slide? So I'm Adam Peltz. I'm a director and senior attorney here at the Environmental Defense Fund. And I'm grateful that you're all able to join us today to talk about the project that we've been pursuing in Western Pennsylvania for around a year and a half, with a new phase about to begin in Southwest Pennsylvania that we're very excited to tell you about. So overall, what this project is designed to develop and demonstrate techniques for finding undocumented orphan wells in Western Pennsylvania to ultimately hand over a blueprint to the PADEP to do this work at scale. In different parts of Western Pennsylvania, we're using different instrumented surveys to locate these wells depending on the local land use, topography, and other factors. And so it's a combination of drone surveys, drones with magnetometers, which are basically fancy metal detectors, and ground-based sensing using cars with methane sensors and backpack-based magnetometers, especially in urban areas. And we'll also be doing some methane emission quantification to better understand the methane emissions from these wells. The project is underway. It's a partnership across multiple organizations, Environmental Defense Fund, Moms Clean Air Force, the Department of Energy, and especially the National Energy Technology Lab based out of Pittsburgh, the PADEP, who has been participating at scale, Harrisburg University and Indiana University of Pennsylvania, which are contributing students to help the effort, and also work to digitize old farm maps and coal mine maps to understand where wells were recorded on paper in the past to see what can be digitized and help us out in our research. And McGill University in Montreal is leading on the methane work. Next slide. So why are we doing this project? So undocumented orphan wells, orphan and abandoned wells, are wells that are no longer producing, do not have a recorded owner, and the differentiation between documented and undocumented is it in the system? There's around 30,000 wells that have been documented and have location data, and you can see an indication of that on this map. So 30,000 is a lot. It's the single largest that any state has, but it's only a small fraction of the true number. Researchers estimate there could be between 300 to 700,000 undocumented orphan and abandoned wells across Western Pennsylvania. This is because of drilling that began in the 1850s. Of course, Western Pennsylvania is the birthplace of the oil and gas industry in the entire world. And there was 100 years of unregulated development where, among other things, locations weren't recorded. And so this is kind of a secret hidden legacy that we're trying to uncover so that we can take care of this problem at scale. The reason why we care about these wells are because they have negative public health and safety, environmental, climate, and property value implications. In particular, they can contaminate groundwater, which may be their single biggest environmental threat. They emit air toxics like benzene, which is a carcinogen, and methane, which is both a climate forcer and an explosive. And so perhaps the single most urgent reason why we need to find these wells is because the wells can, if they're leaking methane, that methane can go underground and into structures and explode. And so people living in close proximity to undocumented orphan wells that emit methane and are an explosion risk is something that kind of keeps us up at night. They also have a substantial economic impact. So the presence of orphan and abandoned wells reduces building activities and potentially property values. That's because they're an unknown, they're a hazard, and they need to be dealt with. The other impact of these wells is that they can render the subsurface uneconomic for other energy uses. So that it covers everything from horizontal hydraulic fracturing to carbon sequestration, geothermal, underground gas storage, other forms of subsurface energy storage, and the like. And so we want to find these wells. Let's go to the next slide for a little more on that. What's changed in the last few years is that for the first time, there is substantial money available to plug these wells. Historically, the DEP has had less than $1 million a year to deploy for plugging orphan and abandoned wells, and that's usually gone to cover 2 or 3 emergency wells that are, substantial and imminent endangerment to people. That is obviously a tiny fraction of the need, and so part of the Infrastructure Act, which you may all recall from 2021, the bipartisan infrastructure law, included $4.7 billion for states to plug these wells. Pennsylvania's allocation of $400 million is again the single largest that any state is receiving, but it's only a small fraction of what's actually needed. Given the scale of the problem, it's not even enough to cover the documented orphan wells, let alone the undocumented orphan wells. And so the case that we're trying to make is that if Pennsylvania can find and catalog its undocumented orphan well population, then it can go to Congress after this round of funding is complete and say, well, thank you, Congress, for the $400 million you've given us so far. We've deployed it well and plugged lots and lots of wells. Here is our updated map, and what we need is $10 billion. And the only way that that kind of money will flow, the prerequisite for that kind of money flowing, is to catalog these wells, get them on the map, show that they're there. And what's promising is that if those monies are made available, they will go primarily to oil field service sector, and in particular well pluggers that are based in Western Pennsylvania. And so the money will go to grow the local economy and put people to work. The jobs are well paying. They tend to be over $100,000 a year. And then people can do plugging work in their own backyards. And so improve the environment, safety, and economics of their community along the way. So this is the ultimate goal of what we're trying to do. Step 1 is flying drones and driving cars with magnetometers. And then, step 10 is getting billions of dollars into Pennsylvania to plug these wells and put people to work. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Meg Coleman to talk about what the next phase of our work looks like in Southwest Pennsylvania, so you can all know what's coming up.
Great. Thanks, Adam, for providing that context and motivation for why we're doing this work. And also thanks to Patrice Tomczyk and Moms Clean Air Force for introducing the topic and hosting the webinar. I'm Meg Coleman. I'm a senior policy analyst at EDF, where I've been for a couple of years now, working closely with Adam on orphan well topics. And I'm also a geologist, so I get the pleasure of leading and managing the technical work for this project. I say lead, but it's really in collaboration with a lot of experts with more expertise than I in this area, with Pennsylvania DEP, the Department of Energy, McGill University, EDF scientists, and several others. So I'm going to take some time to describe what we're going to be doing very soon for a field campaign in Southwest Pennsylvania to find these undocumented orphan wells that Adam so nicely described in previous slides. So the work we're going to be doing starting later in the summer is in Southwest Pennsylvania, and it's really what we're doing, as Adam mentioned, is we're testing methodologies that have been developed by DOE for finding orphan wells in urban and suburban areas. And we've already been doing some of this work in rural Northwest Pennsylvania, where the challenge is finding them in treed mountainous areas. In Southwest Pennsylvania, the challenge is different because it's more of a built environment. So we're the challenge is to find orphan wells which were drilled in the pre-regulatory era, and then which cities and towns were built over. And so it provides some unique challenges. And we're going to be doing this in 6 areas or 6 proposed areas anyway, in Washington and Allegheny counties. And these are areas where the DEP has already been made aware of fugitive gas leaks and done some preliminary work to indicate that these gas leaks are associated with these old legacy wells and not with other sources of methane. So what we're going to be doing is testing methods for finding these wells in areas, and we're going to do it 3 different ways. We're going to be using cars that are mounted with sensors to measure methane. We're also going to have folks after we've done that survey and identified where some of these high probability areas are due to the gas leaks. We're going to have folks walking around with backpack magnetometers that are going to be used to find the magnetic signature of potential wells. And then in some areas, we're going to be using drones mounted with magnetometers. Also, in more well, I'll get into that in a little bit. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, so in advance of doing this work, it's really key to work closely with the communities where we're going to be doing this work, to let them know what we're doing, of course, where, why, and how. Also to secure permission. In some cases, people have DEP has already been doing preliminary work, so there's areas where people have already invited us to come and do this kind of work, and then some other areas where we'll be reaching out and finding out where people are okay with us accessing their land for these types of surveys. And then, of course, the other reason why it's really important to work with the locals is that there's a lot of local knowledge. So it's probably the most efficient way to find wells is if somebody knows where they are, rather than spending all the money to fly drones and run high-tech surveys. So for a lot of reasons, we are reaching out to the community at many levels, and that's a really important part of doing this work. So part of the outreach is this webinar, of course, talking to all of you now. Thank you all for joining us. We're also going to be holding some open houses in the 6 different communities where we're going to be running these surveys. And those open houses are going to be July 14th through the 18th. and they're going to be in North Fayette, Roth, South Strabane, and Charleroi. And we'll be there with our collaborators from DEP and some of the technical folks that are going to be running the surveys. And we will be giving a short presentation describing the project. Also, there will be free food and beer, drone giveaways for kids, a drone raffle for adults, and hopefully we'll have a little fun along with describing what we're going to be doing for this project. Also, in advance of the field work, which is going to be happening as early as late July, most likely August and into September. So also in advance of that, we'll be notifying law enforcement of the survey areas, and we'll also invite local press to observe some of the survey launches. I guess to start our outreach, we first had a lot of conversations with local and state elected officials, and informing them of what we're doing and what our plans are. And all of them, of course, are well aware of the problem and are very interested, supportive of the project as well. Okay, so then we'll go to the next slide and I'll show you what these surveys are going to look like and what they'll involve. So what we'll first be doing is we'll be doing these methane surveys, which will be done by a vehicle. In this slide, you can see a picture of a survey that was done by EDF, I think in 2013. The surveys that we're going to be doing in Pennsylvania are probably going to involve a different vehicle, something closer to like an SUV. And the vehicle will be mounted with sensors like you can see on top of this car. And those sensors will be both measuring for methane and other hydrocarbons, possibly VOCs. And also they'll be mounted with meteorological sensors that will be measuring temperature, wind speed and direction, and that sort of thing. And the cars will be driving on public roads in these 6 defined areas. And they'll be traveling quite slowly, the speed limit or slower. And they'll have the ability to not only detect gas, methane gas, but also be able to very quickly discern what the source of that gas is. So if it's a gas from a utility gas pipeline, or if it has the isotopic signature of a leaky legacy oil and gas well. And they can also tell the difference, from methane that's, maybe emitting from a landfill or some biogenic source as opposed to the thermogenic oil and gas related. So once the gas is analyzed, and once we have an idea that it's related to a legacy oil and gas well, that will be reported to the DEP. And if by chance we come across a pipeline leak that the gas utilities haven't already identified, because they do these surveys regularly too, then we will also be in touch with the gas utilities. So that's what that's going to look like. And if we go to the next one, we'll give you an idea of once we've identified leaks, we will follow up to try to precisely locate where the leaks are coming from. If it's coming from an oil and gas well, and we're pretty sure based on the analysis of the gas, then the next step is to try to figure out where that well is. And if it's not obvious, if it's not a well that somebody's aware of on their land that's sticking above ground, if it's something that's buried beneath, say a home or a parking lot or somebody's driveway, then the next thing to do, and I should mention that the car methane monitoring can detect those leaks with between like 10 and 40 meters, let's say. So then say we want to then locate we still don't know where that well is. Then we're going to be using geophysics by, as you can see in this picture, this is a backpack magnetometer. So the way that works is you walk around and you can pick up the magnetic signature of a lot of things that are magnetic, but also including, there's a kind of a distinctive magnetic signature of a well, of a vertically metal cased well that's underground. And so in the idea is to then do that kind of survey after the methane survey, and that will be done mostly on like sidewalks, public roads in Pennsylvania. And then unless there's a signal that looks like it's on someone's land in their yard or driveway, in which case then we would seek permission from property owners to go on private land. Now, this is a technique that researchers at the Department of Energy at Lawrence Berkeley National Labs have developed, and this shows one of their scientists, Sebastian Birode, using this technology in this particular picture. He's actually in Osage Nation land in Oklahoma, but he's also been doing these surveys in urban Los Angeles and had quite a bit of success. So this will be further testing something that's already been tested and that we're pretty sure will help us find the locations of these wells. And so this will be what we're going to use in the areas where it's densely populated, where it's probably going to be very difficult to get permission to fly drones around. But we've also identified, or I should say, the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, Matt Dracup, who's on this call for questions later, has been working closely with quite a few landowners who are aware of fugitive leaks on their property and are interested in having us survey using drones. And then also there's some areas that he's identified where it's not as urban, where there's farmland or treed wooded areas in Southwest Pennsylvania, where rather than walking around with a backpack magnetometer, it actually makes more sense to fly drones mounted with magnetometers, over 100 feet over the surface, to also detect these very distinctive magnetic signatures of oil and gas wells. So if we can go to the next slide, I can give you an idea of what that will look like. So here's a picture of a drone flying. This is actually in Northwest Pennsylvania in Clarion County over Gameland 72. So we did some surveys using drone work there last fall. We actually surveyed 8 square miles in Clarion and McKean counties, and it was very successful. If you look at the picture underneath the picture of the drone, you can see what is a map view of part of Gameland 72, and it shows the aeromagnetic anomalies, and the little yellow bullseyes are the characteristic signature of a vertical oil and gas well. And in this case, these wells were actually quite a bit beneath the surface because there'd been mountaintop removal. So I believe the top of the wells we think are 30 or 40 feet below the surface. So there's beneath the drone, you can see this little white thing. That's the magnetic tool for measuring that. So in Southwest, again, we're going to do this in just some very focused areas where we have permission, and where other areas where we may get permission to fly the drones. And at the open houses, hopefully we'll have the drone there so people can get a sense for what that looks like. Okay, if we can go to the next slide. So you may be wondering, where are we planning to do all this work? So here's a map of Southwest Pennsylvania, both Allegheny and Washington counties. So Matt Dracup and others at the DEP have identified 6 areas where they know of fugitive gas leaks, where they've already done quite a bit of preliminary work, and they're quite sure that it's either due to their isotopic analyses or other on the gas, that it's the fugitive leaks are related to legacy wells. So the 6 areas are shown here. And if we go to the next slide, which is a bit of a zoom in. Next slide when you can. There we go. So here's Allegheny County. So, and there's Matt joining us. So this shows the 4 prospective areas in Allegheny: North Fayette on the left, where there's some known fugitive gas leaks, and we also know there's legacy wells in that area. And then Ross County and Shaler up there north of the river. and then also down to the right, this White Oak area. So there's kind of a combination of fairly urban, suburban, and then a little bit less urban in the North Fayette area where there's definitely some areas. I guess all four of these areas have some targeted drone areas, and then quite a bit of the areas where we would do just the driving and walking surveys. And then if you can go to the next slide. And then these are the two areas in Washington, a fairly large parcel in South Strabane. And I'll mention that South Strabane is an area that was historically mined for coal. And this is the area I think Adam referred to, the work that students from Harrisburg University and Indiana University in Pennsylvania are digitizing the locations of historic oil and gas wells on historic coal mine maps that tend to have accurated them, have had to have accurately locating them. So that we're going to use that sort of as a guide to where we'll do some of these surveys. And then Charleroi on the right there's some known pesky fugitive gas surveys that I think Matt and others have had a lot of trouble trying to pinpoint the source. So that's an area where they've worked hard to secure some permissions for some drone flights, and where we'll be doing some intensive surveying as well. And with that, I am now going to pass it over to Matt at the DEP to talk about the work that the DEP is doing and how the work they're doing in collaboration with us will help accelerate the work they're doing to find these wells. So over to you, Matt.
All right. Thanks, Meg. Yeah, my name is Matthew Dracup. I'm a professional geologist manager here based out of Pittsburgh. So it's a Southwest regional office with the Department of Environmental Protection. So I've been helping Meg get these locations for this study to scale it and hopefully use it across Pennsylvania. So my background here, I'm a stray gas team manager. That's where I started, and then I'm still doing that. And I dual with the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act manager, and I'm helping out with getting bids together and spending this money they're giving us. So that's great. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I don't use Zoom a lot. At least I don't talk on Zoom a lot. So I'm glad everything's working out here. So I am not Don Hegberg. He's a great guy, but he cannot make it today. I'm not sure why. Maybe some energy issues. I know there's some energy generators down here in the Southwest, but so I can get through this here. I looked at it earlier today, and I have been closely, within the IJA, so I know about the $400 million, like Adams put it very well to start the meeting. Hopefully we get that, and we can prove that we need much more to get those 700K plus abandoned orphan wells here plugged in Pennsylvania. So that's great. He did a good job on that, describing that. So EDF is going to do this study here with DEP's help, primarily for field inspections. So we're going to go out once we find any anomalies through the magnetometers or high methane hits that are processed, the data is processed, and we find that it's potentially an oil gas well. That's when our inspectors will go out and verify that, do some ground truthing. And while we do that, there's some grading we do. So for the IJA, the federal funding, as we're going out, my team is using Survey 123, a GIS-based survey, and they actually have they fill out what would be like high priority. So that would be like methane emissions, any type of evidence of fugitive gas or stray gas within the soils migrating, and as well as just visual pollution, right? So you got the fluids from the gas wells that's leaking. If there's waters of the Commonwealth nearby, we'll go ahead that always makes it a higher priority. So it'll be a higher scoring. And then once we get that, we put them into bid packages for IJA, and then we plug them. So we've been doing bid packages, so requests for proposals. We send those out to contractors, which we are working on getting pre-approved vendors, type of retainer, to actually push these out. So it limits, the pushing out, getting bids. Hey, who wants to bid on this? And then we get several bids and we select one. Coming up here in the Formula One, Phase 1 and Formula Phase 2 packages and grants we're getting from the federal grants, we will then have a group of contractors there ready at our fingertips to really push this quickly and say, hey, we need this 10 in this geographical location. Go get them done. Go plug those. So that's really that's kind of the process here, and we will be aiding in this study as far as ground truthing and getting our inspectors that know what these old oil and gas orphan and abandoned wells look like, and really be able to map them, identify them, get them in our mapping system, our data, so we can then grade them and eventually plug them or mitigate them as needed. So we're good to go to the next. I know there's a little lag time. There we go. So this is kind of some of the techniques we have done. These are pretty extreme examples. The first and the third. The first one, looks like an abandoned orphan gas well right in a stream. So we've come across these, and they're not easy to plug. But through our inspections, I guess I should have mentioned earlier, we also do once we identify, hey, okay, this is a gas well, even though it looks, dilapidated, it has been active for a while, we always do our due diligence. So that's when we look through records, our database, and we also go through some legal deeds to identify if there is a responsible party. And we call that just the responsible party due diligence before the state actually absorbs it and takes it on. So, and then if we can't find a responsible party, that's when we designate it orphaned or abandoned well, and then we get it on our list and we start grading it. The second picture there, that's an RMLD CS. It's a laser gas detector. Those are pretty high tech, as you can see there. They got a camera on them, so you can take pictures as you identify methane emissions from the base of these abandoned orphan well piping and what we think it is. And it's really good aid when we're out there doing our stray gas or fugitive gas investigations. So it's a great tool to have. And I know we're getting ones that aren't as fancy. It's almost like a flashlight, a little less bulky, but does the same thing. Just gives you a number without any camera, without any photo. But these have been helpful within our investigations and identifying abandoned orphan gas wells. And the one on the very right, that's a pretty extreme case where we found a abandoned orphan well within a house, within a structure. It looks like a business there. And we'll go in and we have to reach out to people that think they have a rig small enough that can go in and plug these wells. So doesn't happen often. I know it can be done. It's there's logistical challenges within plugging wells within structures, but as we're finding out, and hopefully this study shows, these wells are built over without knowingly or without knowing, and probably within roadways just too deep. The casing's cut off too far. They don't know it's there, and they just don't check all the records to find all the oil and gas records. And sometimes they're not documenting, so they're undocumented or poorly documented. You really have to dig deep or have access to a private database to find these wells. So I'm pretty sure that's it for me. throw it back to Meg or Patrice.
I'll go ahead. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
So this slide here has some contact information. And so what you can see here is if you have questions about the Orphan Well project program here, you can go to we have a number of ways you can go to the EDF website. It's PAW and PAW at edf.org. And so you can go there, Pennsylvania Abandoned Wells, that's what it stands for, PAW information. And you can also go ahead and ask any questions there. If you have a orphan or abandoned well, and you need to contact the state on that. So the Pennsylvania DEP, you can see information there, and or you can go to the website. And if you look on the website, you can find the abandoned well reporting form. And so that's a way that you can directly contact them. Also, a great resource that we wanted to highlight, excuse me, is the Penn State Extension webinar. And we have a link for that too. And we'll send around all of this information too when we send around the link for the webinar presentation. So with that, I would like to stop the recording because we will be going into question and answer mode. So we'll look in the chat first and see if there's questions there. After we look through the chat, we'll also